let's talk about how this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, can help you with weight loss. Now, this book, if you've never heard of it, I've heard it recommended, I don't know by how many people, and I read it several years ago. And the funny thing about this book is I read it and I didn't pick it up again for a very long time. And only when I was rereading it this past year did I realize, like, wow, I learned so much from this book that I applied to my weight loss journey. And these habits are things that have helped me to not only lose the weight, but definitely keep it off for the long run. So habit number 1 is be proactive. And being proactive, it takes a couple of different things. The first thing is to understand what you have control over. And the way he puts it is there are basically 3 categories of things. Either it's the stuff that you can control, that you have direct control over, the things that you can kind of indirectly control, and then the things that you cannot control. And so he says, when you're trying to figure this out, like what are some things that you have control over versus not, start to listen to the things that you hear yourself say and also the people around you say. So many times we use the words like, I have to do this, or if only, or we say like, I can't. And when we use those types of words, it's kind of like victim language. It makes you feel like you don't really have any power. You don't really have any control over your circumstances. And basically the key is to question that, to really ask yourself like, wait, do I have to do this thing? Or, could I maybe change this thing? And there are basically 2 ways to be proactive. You can either set a goal and achieve it, or make a promise and keep it. And my whole weight loss journey was about learning how to set a goal and actually follow through and do the things that were necessary to get me to that goal. And that tied in directly with the whole idea of making promises and keeping them. So things like making a promise to myself that I was going to get on the scale every day. Whether I wanted to or not, I'm making that promise to myself. So I always know where I am with my weight. And also my step goal was a promise that I, learned how to make and then keep for myself. And as I was going along in my weight loss journey, I tried to think about, okay, what are the things that I really have control over versus what do I have kind of indirect control over and what do I really have no control over at all? And what I found was, one thing that I thought that I really couldn't control, or I felt kind of like a victim in the beginning, was with my eating. But I had to recognize that no one had ever force-fed me anything. In other words, I had been responsible for every single bite that I put in my mouth. I had complete control over that. Another thing that I realized was I don't really have direct control, though, over the scale. It's more of an indirect control. I can control the trend over time. Like the scale will go down if I continue to do these things, to practice intermittent fasting, to walk 6 miles a day. If I do that, I can indirectly affect the scale, but I can't control, the day-to-day number, because there are so many factors that go into it. For example, around my period or after I eat things that are salty, even if I'm not overeating, even if I'm doing everything right, that number may climb a little bit the next day. And that's okay. It's not about having control over that and just learning, okay, I don't have direct control. I can only control the trend over time. And then finally, realizing those things that I have no control over at all. Things like what everyone else is doing around me. I don't have control over that. And I certainly don't have control over the things people may say about my weight or the attitudes that they may have about, what plan I'm doing. I can't control that. I can only control myself. Okay, habit number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Now, this habit of all the habits, I think is the most important one for me on my weight loss journey, the one that was absolutely the most helpful, because it was the thing that I changed this go around. From the time I was a kid, when I went on my first diet, up until the time I was about 30, I was in a constant cycle of weight gain, weight loss, then weight regain, the dieting, the doing the unsustainable thing. And this time I said to myself, what do I want the end to look like? What do I want, the day that I hit my goal weight, what do I really want my life to be like? And so, for me, what I did was I tried to create in my head the most clear picture of what I wanted to look like and what I wanted to feel like and what I wanted my life to look like. And so I look back to my college years because that was a time, just a rare point in my life where I kind of had it all together. I was at a really good weight. I was feeling really confident. I had lots of friends, had lots of connections. I was very active. And at the same time, I was eating whatever I wanted. I wasn't dieting at that time. I was just being active and enjoying life. And that's what I wanted my life to look like at my goal weight. And that informed how I built my plan because I realized, I don't want to cut out a bunch of food groups and then try to somehow figure out how to maybe add them back in later. I just want to learn how to eat all the foods, everything that I love, and still lose weight. And so that's what I did. And this was very helpful, because I lose weight slowly, like a pound a week when I was at my heaviest. That's about what I was losing. And it's a long time that it takes to lose a significant amount of weight. And during that time, it was tempting from time to time. I would see people and they would be saying, "Oh, I dropped 5 pounds this week," or "I dropped 10 pounds, in a couple of weeks," or whatever. And they would do things like keto. And I sometimes felt like, "Oh, maybe I should be trying that. Like, maybe I should do that." But because I kept that end goal in mind, like, no, I don't need to do that, because that's not what I want my life to be. I want my life to be this way. I want it to, I want it to be where I can eat what I want. I want to be able to have ice cream at night if I want it. I want to be able to eat bread and pasta and all these things. And so that kept me on the right track, which, once I got to my goal weight, it wasn't like I had to change anything. I just had to keep doing those same things I had been doing. And I think that's a really big reason why I've been able to keep the weight off for years now. Habit number 3 is to put first things first. Now, this one was very difficult for me because really what this is about is learning how to manage yourself so that you can manage your day. In other words, it's about learning how to prioritize and then do those things that are your priority. So it's kind of interesting. The thing that really helped me to get control of my day was my step goal. And the thing about my step goal, having 14,000 steps be my daily goal, that meant 2 hours of walking every day. And like I said, I was really bad at managing my time. Like so many days, but when I was obese, I would just kind of get to the end of my day and think, like, what did I do all day? Like the day just kind of frittered away. And yeah, I had small kids at the time and I was trying to work from home. There was a lot going on, but at the same time, I was just struggling to really manage myself and manage my day. There were lots of things I procrastinated on and it was just not good. But when I brought in that step goal, that 2 hours of walking, what it looked like at first was like, I just told myself like, okay, I must every day do this. Like it doesn't matter how late I have to stay up. I'm not going to bed until I get these steps in. And in the beginning, there were plenty of days where I was getting that 14,000th step right before midnight. But as time went on, I started to finally be able to manage my day so that I was getting my steps in earlier and earlier and earlier. And nowadays I get them in first thing in the morning. I wake up at 4 o'clock, get them in, and I'm usually done early in the morning. And that just came with a lot of time and practice and learning how to say, okay, this is an important thing. I've got to get this done. And that helped me to do that with a lot of different things, not just my steps, but just accomplishing those things, those household things I needed to accomplish, or things like writing a book, learning how to, get myself in order so that I could sit down and do those things. That all stemmed, I think, from learning how to put things first and do my step goal. And, having that consistency with my step goal helped me to be consistent with intermittent fasting. It was kind of like, I've already done these 6 miles, like I should stick with the intermittent fasting. And then it kind of went the other way too. That reinforced my walking habit. And as I got more and more in control of my schedule, I started to see, I do have time to sit down and kind of review what's going on, what's going on with my numbers and what's going on with my plan and how am I feeling. Before I kind of felt like I don't have time to do that, but once I got my day under control, then I really did make that time that was necessary to be able to, like if I felt like I was plateauing, to look back and say, okay, what's actually going on? And that was very helpful. I think there were many times that, I might have quit if I hadn't have really gotten that lesson of how it's important to make time for those things that are important. Habit number 4 is to think win-win. Now, I was in the habit in the past of a lot of times thinking lose-win. So in other words, people around me would win, but I would lose. Or at least that's how I thought of it at the time. I really thought, well, I need to, put my kids first and then my husband first. And I'll be last and it's okay because it's more important that I take care of everybody else around me. But what I learned the hard way was really I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of just creating a lose-lose. Because when you put yourself last, you can start to really resent it. I mean, I had put myself last so much that I got to a place where I was obese and I was sedentary and I was just not really happy with so much in my life. And in fact, that kind of created this lose-lose because if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. And so I had to learn that in order to create a win-win, I had to win and then the people around me would win too. And the way this really worked for me in weight loss was to kind of create a win-win within myself. I kind of feel like there's two Kaylas inside me. There's obese Kayla, and she's the one that she wants no food rules at all ever. She just wants to eat all the food, have huge portions all the time, and like not really go outside and do things. And then I have this other side of me that, wants to be at a healthy weight. And though she can be kind of a perfectionist and kind of be too strict. So I tried to create a win-win situation, like let healthy weight Kayla win and get down to the healthy weight and be an active person. But I also wanted that other side of me to win. The side that wanted to eat all the foods and the side that wanted to have fun and have an enjoyable life. And when I created my plan, that's what I tried to keep in mind. Like I want both sides to win. And what I found by doing that was creating that win-win for myself helped me to see how important it was to just create win-wins at every opportunity. And that was great because when you create win-wins and you're not creating those lose wins for yourself all the time, there's just less resentment in your life and less stress. And that leads to less stress eating. Habit number 5 is to seek first to understand and then to be understood. And this is something I did with myself. I really didn't know myself well. I didn't really understand myself well. Back in 2014, I was pretty just unaware, just self-unaware. And I also hadn't really delved into like the root issues of my weight gain and my issues with food. And so this process, especially, starting, I would say in 2014, and on through, and even to this day, I'm still trying to understand myself and those root issues. Like, why do I interact with food the way I do? And where did these bad habits come from? And why do they sometimes crop up more often than others? And learning those things, learning the why and the root things has really helped me for long-term success because, in the past, it's easy to kind of like just not think about these things, just kind of get to your goal weight and then slip back into old habits. But when you really seek first to kind of understand yourself, instead of trying to like just boss myself around and be like, you just got to get off the weight, just learning about myself has been really useful. And then practicing that same type of behavior with my kids and with my husband, instead of trying to like try to get them to understand me and try to like kind of push my my views and opinions on them, I try to get in the habit of first understand what they're going through and really listen to them and not just like, fuss at them or try to tell them what they're doing wrong. Just really listen to, what's going on. And I found that it's really helpful. And again, it lowers everyone's stress levels and we end up with a happier household. Habit number 6 is to synergize. Now, synergy is basically when you have 2 or more things that you put them together. And when you put them together, they are greater and more powerful than if they were just separate things. And so I tried to incorporate some synergy into the things that I was doing for weight loss. So for example, my step goal, going out for just a walk, a 6-mile walk, and that's all you're doing, it can be kind of boring. And I mean, sometimes I do that. Sometimes I don't have headphones in or anything. I just go out, listen to nature, and that can be enjoyable. But day after day after day of that could get pretty boring. And on the other hand, I like to listen to podcasts, but I kind of found it boring to just sit there and listen to podcasts. So I put those things together. I said, okay, going for walks, that's a great time to listen to a podcast. And so, and plus, I was learning during that time. So it was like this great opportunity where I really looked forward to getting out and going for my walk, because not only was I getting my steps in, I was achieving that goal that I had set for myself each day, but I was also learning a lot and being entertained. And nowadays, I do that same walk with my husband. And so we get a couple of hours every day of just walking around and talking, and it has improved our marriage so much. Another way I try to synergize things is with the fasting window. So a fasting window, just in and of itself, is pretty boring and maybe pretty challenging depending on how used to intermittent fasting you are. And for me, in the beginning, I really needed to stay busy. Like, to just sit around and think about food, that was going to be just a recipe for disaster. So instead, I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to just like do all those things that I've always felt like I don't have time for. And I just filled up that fasting window with all these great things that would, like things that I love to do or things that I've always wanted to try. And it, filled up my life in a really interesting way. Now, the seventh habit is sharpen the saw. So sharpening the saw is really about feeling good and always rejuvenating four main areas of your life. That's physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. And so what I try to do is to structure my life, first of all, so that those four areas I'm always feeling good. So, like having that daily 6-mile walk keeps me feeling good physically, and keeping my weight at a healthy range helps me feel good physically. Every day I read the Bible, and every week my family does a Bible study. That keeps me spiritually feeling good. And emotionally, again, going back to that walk, that's been very helpful for me. Also, journaling every single day helps me to stay in a good emotional place. Also, talking with my husband on those walks helps a lot too. And mentally, making sure that I'm challenging myself. I love to read, so I try to read and then also learn new skills. And I try to make sure that all four of those areas stay, firing on all cylinders. But occasionally, I do feel like, something's kind of off. And because I have control of my days, I'm able to kind of like sit down and suss out like what's going on. And I try to figure out, like, do I need some time off, or, like maybe this thing isn't challenging me. And then I try to problem solve and realize, going back to all of those habits that we just talked about, being proactive and putting first things first. A lot of times that's the problem. I have let my priorities kind of get shifted, and I need to reconfigure some things so that I'm always feeling good. So if you've never read this book, I highly recommend it. I think it'll be very useful for you on the weight loss journey, but also just in general, life in general. Everybody can benefit from this book. It doesn't really matter if you have a job or if you're a stay-at-home mom, which, by the way, is a full-time job. I know that from experience. But no matter like what walk of life you're in, I think it could be very useful because really, I think everyone struggles with being effective in their own life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. And if you read this book, I hope you enjoy it.